Good afternoon, everybody. We are excited to have you all here today to listen to some of our great league directors across the country talk about why they do sports ministry. We're excited to celebrate. A lot of y'all are finishing up your basketball season, and you're coming fresh off the heels of your last game day, last practices, maybe even an end of the season celebration. And we are super excited to just sit and talk with some people today about why they do sports ministry. And I just want to kind of introduce myself, and then we'll get into introducing some of our panelists today. So my name is Eddie Becker, and I work here at Upward Sports on our program development team. I have the opportunity to write some curriculum and write a lot of the devotions that your participants have been doing throughout the season. So really excited to be here and talk to some people about why they're doing sports ministry. We're going to be asking our panelists some different questions today, but we want to be sure that you get to take part in this as well. So you'll see kind of at the bottom of your screen there a chat box where you can submit some questions. And we'd love for you to put your questions in there. And hopefully at the end of the webinar, we'll have an opportunity to share one or two of those questions and sort of get the thoughts from our panelists on those things. So let's go ahead and hop in, and I want to start off by introducing our panelists today. So we have three panelists from across the country that are league directors joining us today. We have Kyle Oakley, who is a league director from Lebanon Baptist Church in Greensboro, North Carolina. That church has been a 12-year partner with us. They've done basketball and cheerleading and recently started soccer. Noah Ford is a children's pastor from Oakland United Methodist Church in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. A 2-year partner with us, been doing basketball and cheerleading along with some clinics. Tracy Stults is children's pastor from First Church of the Nazarene in Findlay, Ohio. And they've been doing basketball and cheerleading. First Church of the Nazarene has been doing it for 23 years now. So an incredible time. And Tracy, I looked at some different things going on in the world of sports 23 years ago. So Michael Jordan had just won his 6th NBA title and retired for the second time. Serena Williams just won her very first Grand Slam title in tennis. And Tom Brady had not even been drafted into the NFL yet. So that gives you any idea on how long you guys have been a part of running sports ministry through Upward. And so we're excited about that. But in talking with you, learned that you're not even a sports person. And so just really intrigued about a story that maybe has resonated with you that got you into thinking, man, sports ministry is really something that we wanted to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question, Eddie. So yeah, I'm an elementary teacher actually at heart before God called me into ministry, and I began to serve in at the church, and I was teaching junior high Sunday school class, and I kind of helped a little bit with Upward the year before, and they were needing some leadership in there. But I was teaching junior high Sunday school class to some 7th and 8th graders, and I remember there was a couple of boys in there that I'll just describe as punks. I don't know if you've ever met 7th and 8th grade boys that are sometimes punks, but these guys were. And I remember talking to them one day in Sunday school, and I said to them, hey, can you tell me up to this point, you're in 7th and 8th grade, can you tell me anything that has been really spiritually formational to you? And I had not started, in Upward, but I was thinking about it, and I was praying about taking it on. And this one kid who was especially punk-like looked at me and he said, Upward Sports. He said, Upward Sports. 100%. When I played Upward Sports, I feel like $1 million. He said, it felt like I was on top of the world. I felt so encouraged. I felt so poured into. He goes, and I remember he said the distinction clearly. He's in 7th or 8th grade. He said, I now play basketball for a Christian school. He goes, and it's about winning or losing. And you clearly could see the difference. And so I just remember being so inspired at that point, going, man, any organization that can do that from a punk 7th or 8th grade kid telling me that, I want to be able to be a part of.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I'm sure there are people listening right now that are like you, and maybe they're not at heart a huge sports person. So they're just wondering, like, can sports ministry really make an impact for us in our church and our community? So I think your story resonates with probably a lot of people.
Well, the thing I'll just tell you on that, Eddie, is that I'm not a sports person at all. So there's nothing about that I am passionate about sports. I don't really understand sports and I don't get it. But I thought, man, I can use my gifts and talents to be able to organize a league or put together and organize and order uniforms and do the administrative legwork, because this is a program that is just reaching so many people for Christ, and it's awesome.
Right. Thank you for that. The next question I kind of wanted to jump into. So Noah, I wanted to get your thoughts here, because this is, you're coming off your first year of running a league, and just curious, why did your church choose sports when there's a lot of other tools that you could have chosen to kind of reach your community?
Yeah. So Eddie, thank you so much. And actually, Tracy, I'm glad that you shared your story. And so it's kind of a two-part answer. The first is that, Tracy, I was that punk junior high kid. That was me. Because as a kid, I played in upwards, specifically in basketball. And that was so formational in my walk with Christ as a child, and being able to, not just go to church on Sunday, but when I'm there throughout the week, like, oh, this is the same place I play basketball is also the place that I get to worship God. And the relationships I built, and seeing my coaches who were men and women that were serving in all other areas throughout my church was huge. So that was a start. So really, I'm kind of like a legacy kid here. And then, like, I got to middle school, high school, and then I got to coach and ref and kind of do things on the back end that now as an adult, I get to bring that to my city. And so when I came on staff at my church a few years ago, we have a gym, but we weren't using it. And I was like, well, that's weird. I have this idea. And I kind of felt like the Lord had put upwards on my heart. And I'm like, wow, it's been so long. Okay, let's take a look at that. And I went ahead and I met with other community leaders in my city, school board members. And, I just asked them, I said, hey, how can we reach the kids in our city? And the same answer all around, it was that the language of reaching kids is basketball. In our city, that's what it is. If you want to reach kids, you need to do basketball. And I said, okay, then that settles it. Then that's what we're going to do. We're going to offer basketball, but we're going to do it in a way where that's the vehicle to bring Jesus to the kids in our city. And that's how we got started.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love how you said that the basketball is the language that kind of connects you guys to those children in the community, and how something as simple as a ball can really get them involved in church and open up doors for you to share the gospel. That's really exciting. I wanted to sort of show you guys a quote that we got recently from an Upward parent on our Facebook feed. And they said this: having a sports league this year gave my child normalcy after months out. She was able to see friends, meet new friends, and have fun. Thank you for giving my child a place to play. And I think that's probably a sentiment that resonates with so many moms and dads across the country, coming off just what's been a difficult last few years. And Kyle, I'm just curious, how this quote might resonate with what you guys are doing at your church.
Yeah, sure, Eddie, thanks. It really does resonate with us. I mean, so last year, during the height of COVID, we decided to go ahead and continue with our program. We felt like it was important for our community, to still be able to offer basketball and cheerleading for whoever wanted to come out. If we had 100 kids, great. We were going to put it on no matter what. And so, we normally average around 300 to 350. We were a little down last year. We had 280 during the height of COVID. But what it really did, and I think, this quote resonates with, is this season we have 520. And the reason for that is because we stayed open, and we kept going, and we kept offering, a place where these kids could come and have fun and be safe and learn the gospel and learn basketball and cheerleading. And so, it really resonates with us, as a church, that we were able to still do that for our community.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you kind of took hold of something and met the parents' needs, where at a time everything else was shutting down, and you still offered an opportunity for kids to play and connect. and how that's just allowed you guys even more explosive growth and opportunities to advance the kingdom in the community. So thank you for sharing that. Want to offer this question to you guys. So why continue to offer sports to your community? And how has sports ministry impacted your community and your church? And Tracy, we'll kind of start with you and get kind of your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, I mean, I would just say, I know for our community, we just live in a supercharged just sports society. Our community, I mean, so we have travel leagues from an elementary school, and I have people constantly telling me that they maybe can't do this or can't do that because of they have conflicts with sports. And so when you begin to sit and think of that this is where we are today, that's the way that you're reaching people. I mean, that's the value of what people are putting on. They want to be able to see their kids. They want to be able to have their kids have that opportunity in sports to be able to learn. And so we're bringing what they value to them. We're just using it in such a way that's just going, I mean, I just feel like sports just saturates everything, but just being able to use that as a tool and as a vehicle. For us, we have hundreds and hundreds of people coming into our church every single week to be able to watch their kids be able to play. And it's just amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think, Kyle, you talked about kind of your unique situation in the community that your church is in. Can you speak to that and kind of how sports has helped you to impact your community?
Yeah, sure. So our community has a really rich history of youth sports programs. I mean, growing up, I grew up in the community I'm still serving in now, but growing up, we had a community or an organization that ran basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, football, just year round. And, that's what all the kids did. And then, for whatever reason, as leaders phased out and new leaders didn't replace them, the whole organization went away, and so a whole need kind of presented itself, for our community that just needed sports, didn't have anything, didn't have anywhere to go. And so, 12 years ago, we started this basketball, ministry, really to provide that need, to meet that need for the community.
That's great. That's great. How have you, I think you mentioned to me yesterday when we were talking about just the diversity and how you're trying to deal with that. Is there any intentionality that you've experienced around that within your community?
Yeah, so absolutely. So, our church, if I'm just being bluntly honest with everybody, but our church is probably about 90% white, and we are surrounded by a community that is probably more like 75% Hispanic and African American, and so for us to be intentional about, bringing diversity into our church, which is what we should all want, is to bring that diversity in, but to match our community and to meet our community where they are, and so like Noah mentioned earlier, I mean, basketball is the language. From North Carolina, you grow up with a basketball in your hand, and so we're meeting our community where they are, but we're trying to be intentional about, bringing diversity into our church as well. And so we get to invite them, into our gym every single week, but then love on them, show them that we care for them, and that just, we're not trying to grow our church membership. We're trying to grow membership in the Lord, right? I mean, we're trying to point them to Jesus Christ. And if we can get them to come to our church in order to do that, then that's where we want to meet our community at.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love the heart and recognizing where you guys are geographically within your community and to what you need to do to best meet the needs of those in your community. And like Noah said, basketball is the language for kids in a lot of ways. What we find it in Upward is 95% of people are impacted by sports in some way every day. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're playing sports or they're coaching sports. That could mean they're just watching sports, or they're just talking about it, or like some people, they just overhear other people talking about it. But it's such a prevalent part of our society. I think all three of you talked in great detail about the importance of using that as a way to share the gospel. So I love that. So I want to open up this question. And we think about this in terms of just church in general, but I want to talk specifically about your sports ministry. If your church did not offer sports, how would this affect your community, and would your community miss you? And Noah, I want to get all three of y'all in on this, but Noah, I'd like to start with you and just get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so at first, my first thought is no. And I say that because as we kicked out our league, we learned, oh man, there's two other programs in our city, and then there's also an elementary tournament that goes on. Oh man, this is gonna be hard. It's gonna be a struggle. Well, in the midst of all that, we still saw over 100 kids register. Okay. And as the season progressed and as we went through things, I have had parents consistently ask me, when can we sign up for next season? And I've had parents stop me and say, hey, this is so much better than, and then they fill in the blank with whatever program. And I think the reason really is because, one, we're focused on developing athletes. And just like how Upward says, we focus on developing the whole athlete. And the thing that separates us from these other programs is that, well, we're not a program. We are a ministry. And we offer the one thing that those programs don't offer, and his name is Jesus Christ. That's what we offer. We get to minister to these kids and pour into them all season long. At halftime, we get to do devotions and have fun. And then there's the awards night. And there's so many different ways that we get to bless these kids and minister to them. And we're planting seeds, and these are seeds of legacy. And, we don't know what's going to happen, where these kids are going to go, how they're going to bless the kingdom, and how, what's going to happen there. I mean, again, I was one of those kids. I was in Upwards, and then I grew up and became a kids pastor. Like, are you kidding me? So that's what we're talking about, though, and so ultimately I would say, yeah, I think our community would miss us. If we were to stop today, I believe that parents and families would say, what happened? Why aren't you here? What happened to Upwards, and what can we do to bring it back?
Great. That's great. Kyle, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say absolutely yes. We historically, as we end basketball season, we always get the question of, what other sports do you offer? What are you doing next? And we just got to a point where we hated, sending them to another organization, or, having to say, yeah, we're sorry, we just don't have anything else. So we got to the point, I said, why don't we do soccer? We have grass, right? We have the opportunity. Our community is just dying for us to continue, doing something. And so we added 2 seasons of soccer in. We're going to be adding volleyball this summer, with future goals of, baseball, softball, and flag football. So we really do feel like our community would miss us, because we just get so many questions of, like, what are you doing next? What's the next season? And I hated to just push them off from March to October and just send them out with no idea of, where they were going. Right. So now we get the year-round opportunity to share the gospel with our community.
That's great. Tracy, I'm curious on your input on this as a longtime partner.
Yeah, so we a couple of years ago, we were able to offer, a few years back, we were able to offer Upward up through 6th grade, and then we had to cut back because we have the way that we do it in my community is we actually partner with other churches in town we are just affiliated through Upward. So I think that's just amazing in and of itself, right? Is that we just come together for reaching kids for Christ using Upward sports. And so but it was a few years back, we had to stop doing 5th and 6th grade, and we just go 1st through 4th grade. And I had so many emails and so many people saying, why did we have to cut that out? So I know that that's just such a huge value for our community, because at the end of the day, this is a place for families. You see them come in as grandparents and aunts and uncles. You see teachers from their classroom come in. Their name is called. They're called out of the tunnel. The spotlight is going. It's every single week. These kids get to feel, again, like I would say back to that Sunday school kid of like $1 million. Like, we are just pouring in, and they want to bring their families, and their grandparents come from out of town to be able to be seeing these kids in your ministry and using Upward sports. And so I know for a fact, and I've experienced the emails when we had it cut out for 5th and 6th grade, that if we didn't do upward sports, that there would just be kind of just this hole missing, because it reaches so many in our community.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that is, when you put it in that context, that for a family that's so used to coming each Saturday to a game day and just experiencing the joy and the fun that goes, and for that to be taken away from them at any point, like that would be just a loss. I mean, it's a piece of their life that's just being kind of taken away. So I love all the responses on that, because I think that is a really important thought. Like if we didn't do this, how would it affect the community that we are sent here to love and care for? So really great thoughts there. I want to talk about a really interesting statistic that some viewers may or may not know, but up to 50% of families in upward sports leagues state that they are not associated with the church family. That means half of the participants, and in a lot of cases more than half, are coming to practices and game days and are not even affiliated with the church. And that kind of brings to mind something that Jesus said when he was talking to the Pharisees in Matthew 22, verses 37 through 39. He said, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself." And I think about that when I read this statistic about how Jesus called us to love everyone. So if your church where you're holding your games are within a community, and those are people we are called to love, and a lot of those might not have a clue about church at all, don't know anything about Jesus, and you've got a great opportunity to take part in that. So I wanted to talk for just a minute, Kyle, with you about a really neat prayer tool that you guys have come up with that really helps you fall in line with this idea that, a lot of people that are coming to your leagues and your game days aren't a part of the church.
Yep. And so actually we've seen upwards of 50%. So out of our 520 kids that we have this year, over 300 of them do not recognize themselves as a church family, as a church goer, regular attender. And so something we instituted, several years ago was a program called Pray for a Player. And through this program, not everybody, but members of our church adopt a player for their family really, because we want to encourage them to pray for everybody, but just to put out there a blanket statement, pray for our upward program. Yes, we want you to do that. But by this initiative, we've been able to make personal connections, right? Personal communication between our church family and our upward family. And so, what we do through this program is every single one of those kids are adopted. All 520 of our kids that are playing this season have been adopted by a family in our church. And so, we go through kind of a process. They text them one week and just say, "Hey, my name's so-and-so. I'm from Lebanon Baptist Church. I'm praying for you and your family." Another one's an email a couple of weeks later. We encourage them to come attend a game where they'll come up and just actually introduce themselves, to a child's family and just say, "Hey, I'm so-and-so. I've been texting you and emailing you, and I'm just wanted you to know I'm praying for you. I'm excited to see, your child play today." And then the final touch is they send them a gift card in the mail, nothing special, maybe $5 or $10 to their favorite restaurant or Chick-fil-A or McDonald's or whatever. But it's to continuously throughout the season touch on the fact that we love our community, right? We love each one of our players. We care for each one, our players and their families, because like Tracy mentioned earlier, that it's a place for families. I mean, the whole family comes to be a part of Upward. And so that's been a really important initiative for us to reach these 50+%, of families that don't have a church home, that don't go anywhere, and just invite them into our church, invite them to any church, but just show them that love and that care, that they can understand, why we really do Upward basketball the way we do it.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. And I think, we talk about, praying for your game days and praying for coaches and praying for the league. And those are obviously wonderful things, but when you put an actual face and a name and a family to that, that kind of changes the dynamics of how you're praying, right? Like it feels a lot more intentional, more like you're invested in that person's life. So that's just a fantastic thing that you guys are doing, and I think something that a lot of other leagues could probably adopt and run with. So that's great.
So wait, so Kyle, just to clarify here, so like all 500 kids are adopted from your church.
Yep.
Every player has someone that's praying for them, texting them.
Every single player, 520 this year, have somebody in our church actively praying over them, reaching out to them, and just inviting them to church. You know, it got to a point, I think last year during COVID, you know, obviously church attendance was down and things like that across the board, but, you know, our pastor was literally in the pulpit, you know, crying because we had 3 or 4 kids who didn't get adopted. You know, but his heart for those 3 or 4 kids this year, we had no problem filling that 520. And, you know, some church members have multiples. Our church, we're not a mega church. We don't even have 500 regular attenders, you know, and so to have a family adopt multiple kids and reach out to multiple kids, you know, just shows the commitment of our church to our community.
Yeah. Wow, man. Wow. I'm definitely gonna have to steal it. So I think I had mentioned that before. I still need to email you and steal that from you, man. That's such a good idea.
Happy to share it with anybody. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Great. Next question that I want to get input from all 3 of you guys. So what do you do as a league director to remind volunteers and coaches of the why behind your sports ministry? And I'd love to hear this because some of you have lots of experience, some of you don't. And so kind of would love to hear the different perspectives on this. And Noah, we'll start with you. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, I think for us, you know, we are in a situation where we're a smaller league. We had 10 basketball teams, 3 cheer squads, and so, you know, it's not a lot of volunteers. It's a smaller crew. So I'm in a position where I can meet with them. I can catch a coach after a game. I can pull them over and have one-on-one conversations. You know, I definitely remember a couple times where I pulled coaches aside and just gave them a little reminder, like, hey guys, like, just remember, we're not a program. We are a ministry. Like, anyone else, any other program in town, they're going to go and they're going to push the offense and the defense. But here we're pushing the Christ-likeness and the sportsmanship, you know, and again, and kind of like what Tracy was saying earlier, you know, this is a ministry, and it's geared to families and coaches and refs and everyone else that's involved. And, you know, and that's just it. Like, through those personal conversations, I got to hear from a coach that's like, hey, so my son who's 2 is going to be having surgery. I'm not going to make that one game. Oh, okay. And, you know, we got to come alongside that family and walk with them through that experience. You know, and I'm just reminded of, you know, when Jesus said to, you know, Peter, like, hey, you know, I'm going to make you fishers of men. And it's like, that's exactly what is happening here. You know, we're planting seeds of legacy, like I said earlier. And so, you know, again, these kids, they're going to grow up to who knows what they're going to do for the kingdom, you know, and it's not about growing my church. I think Kyle said this earlier. It's not about growing my one church. This is about growing the kingdom and taking the kingdom and conquering the city or your town or wherever it is that you are. It's taking the kingdom there and conquering that for the kingdom. And so it's through those personal conversations that I've been able to have that we've been able to do that. And if I'm not able to, I have an awesome support team of commissioners that I can say, hey, can you go and have this conversation with these people while I go and have a conversation over here? And that's just kind of how we've been able to approach it this past season.
Great. Tracy, what about you?
You know, I think for me, it just comes back to, I got to remember that I just say thank you a lot to our coaches, to our teams, because this is a sacrifice to them of giving up of their time, of their energy. And I got to remember for me that we focus a lot on the why for the kids. And that's absolutely true. This is why I do it. And I'm going to, right? Kids and Jesus, I'm going to come every single time. I'm going to do everything I can to connect kids in Jesus. But there are so many coaches and parents and volunteers that this benefits as well, because they are seeing Jesus, or they get to be the hands and feet of Jesus, or they get to experience that, and just coming back, I think, and just thanking our coaches on a regular basis. So just coming back to thank you so much for doing that. Thank you so much for your time, for your effort, for your energy, and just making sure that I do everything that I can to be able to pour back into my team. And there's a lot of team members that help pull this off every single week. The cleanup crew that comes in and sets back up the chairs and sweeps up the popcorn, right? I mean, it's just remembering to tell them thank you, because by you, I'll slip in. I gotta tell you a funny story maybe, but so I'm the league director, and I told you we have 2 churches. And so I volunteer at the school sometimes with my children. And I was in the teacher's lounge one time, a couple of years ago, and I was making copies, and there was another lady in there, and I started saying, chit-chatting and saying hi, something. And I said, hey, where do you go to church? And she mentioned our other partner church that we partner with in Upward. I said, oh man, we love that church. Man, that church is so awesome. They do Upward with us. That's so great. And she said, yeah, but they always mess up our nursery. They always are messing up the toys in the nursery. I said, oh, I know, but can you imagine how many kids come to know Christ in that program because we mess up and the nursery is messed up? I mean, it is awesome. There are so many kids that come to know Christ every year in that program. And she looks at me and she says, what did you say your name is? Because I was just there making copies for my kids. I was just a volunteer in the teacher's line. And I was like, oh, I'm Tracy, I'm the league director. I always get a kick out of that, because I go over there every Saturday, and she is greeting, and she is opening the door, and she is helping, because it just comes back to that why. This is why we do it. There's going to be some inconveniences a little bit, and there's going to clean up some popcorns, but man, there are hundreds of people coming in the doors of your church, and you don't know what those seeds that are going to be planted. Like, you don't know. There are people that have committed to never darken the doors of a church, but they're coming in for sports. They're coming in for Upward sports, right? And so for me, I come back to the why of just meeting our volunteers and our coaches and just thanking them a lot and appreciating them as much as I can, to just make sure that I let them know that their small part that they play and the small part that they do makes a huge difference and a huge impact for the kingdom every time.
That's great. That's great. Kyle, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think for me, and I told Noah yesterday that I'm jealous that I don't have that opportunity, to be intentionally one-on-one with everybody. But a lot of it for us is just, number one, setting expectations up front, with our coaches. They come to a preseason meeting, and the volunteers all come to a preseason meeting, where we lay out the why. And we give them an opportunity, hey, if you're not bought into this, if you're not comfortable giving a devotion, or if you don't even believe in Jesus, then, now's the time to kind of go out, because I'm going to remind you every single week the real reason why we're doing this. And so that setting that expectation up front, they probably get tired of getting videos and emails and texts from me, throwing stuff on Facebook about, 0.002% chance your child is going to the NBA, 100% chance your child is going to stand in front of Jesus one day. And so, getting those kind of reminders out throughout the season is the way we do it, to make sure we remind, and our coaches, our volunteers, everybody who's involved.
That's great. I love that. I want to also ask you guys, that this is kind of more of a personal question, right? But how has being a league director strengthened your relationship with Christ? And Tracy, we'll start with you and just sort of get your thoughts on how being a league director has brought you closer to the Lord.
I mean, I think it's like, I think a lot of times, like, you sit as a Christian and you sit and say like, we're the hands and feet of Jesus. Okay, now what, right? You pray for missionaries, or you send money to help somebody in a country, and you're helping. But like, this is to me, I think Upward Sports is the front lines of ministry, right? This is it. I mean, you have kids coming in, maybe in foster care, maybe in tough situations. I feel like I feel a lot of situations of mom brings them this weekend, or dad brings them this weekend, or this or that. There's just a lot of, I mean, this is the life we live in. This is the world we live in, that is difficult and that is hard and that is struggle. So when you're creating this environment where kids feel like $1 million, and they tell you that, and they can tell you in 7th and 8th grade, what they're not telling you and what they're not articulating in that is that it's a safe. I felt encouraged. I felt people poured into me. I felt, right, they're not telling you, but the work and the why that I do it is to create that kind of safe environment. And so to be able to say, I'm not heading over to Mozambique, right? But I am heading right here in our church gym. And I'm going to forget, again, as a league director, you're setting up the behind the scenes, you're setting up the season, you're drafting the teams, or you're ordering some uniforms, but you're doing all of that legwork so that kids come into a closer relationship with Jesus Christ. And so in my own life, I can tell you, like, my son says, yeah, he came to know Jesus at an Upward Award celebration, right? Whenever you're sharing that gospel and you're giving them that opportunity. I have adults every year in that Upward Award celebration that will mark on their card that they came to know Christ through Upward Sports that year, and they've given their heart to Christ. And you just don't know the seeds that are planted. So I just say, for me, it strengthened it, because you are the hands and feet of God. You get to all season long, right? So it's pretty awesome.
Awesome. Noah, how about you?
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Tracy says right there, being the hands and feet. And like I said earlier, it's when Jesus says, hey, I'm going to make you fishers of men. And you kind of sit back, and as a Christian, you're like, okay, all right, I'm waiting. What do I do? And now here I am. And I get to see kids coming to Jesus, or we're watching the seeds get planted. And I remember earlier in the season, a coach needed help at practice, so I just showed up and started helping out. And then we sat down for devotion, and we're going through it, and the kids are the ones that are leading the devotion. Some are asking questions, and then the other kids are answering their questions. And it's like, oh, well, okay, you guys take over, you kids lead this. And it's like, okay, so, and I think, like on the back end as a league director, you're setting everything up, you're doing all this work, and you're all this investment, and you're kind of like, okay, where's the payoff? Where am I going to see this? And it's not that we look for reward here. We look for reward in heaven, of course. But then you see stuff like that happen. You see kids that are taking ownership of their faith. You see kids that are at an awards night, like Tracy said, who are waving their hand that they accepted Jesus. You're like, that right there, it was all worth it. And before we got on, I got an email this morning from a parent with a 4-page letter that I have here printed out. And I mean, it just goes on and on, telling me about her son's experience and his story, and really their story as a family, and to see his growth in his faith. And then also he went from not wanting to do sports and not wanting to be involved to now he's so excited for next season, and he's going to be practicing all summer long. And anytime they're at the church, that he has a basketball in his hands. And I'm like, that right there, that is just awesome. I'm like, thank you, God, for the opportunity the privilege to be able to be part of this, and to bring this to the city. The fact that I get to see scripture come to life, that right there, that's how I would say it's strengthened my relationship with Christ. Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. I love those responses. I think it's really important that league directors know that, it is an important part of this, right? Like, you're investing all this time, but you need to be full of yourself, right? So I love hearing that. I do want to run ahead, Kyle, and get your thoughts on this question, because I want to be sure we've got time at the end. We've got some really good questions in from the people that are watching. So, but Kyle, I know that you just recently started soccer. You're going to be starting volleyball soon. So just getting your viewpoint on why you guys decided to offer sports ministry year-round.
Right. So mostly it just kind of harkens back to what we talked about earlier. Just our community continuously was asking, really, they were asking for it. I mean, literally every single basketball season, what else are you doing? Have you thought about doing soccer? Have you thought about doing baseball? This and that. And then, we just kind of look out there, and like I mentioned, it's like, why not? Why not do soccer? We have grass. We can easily put a soccer field together, out in the field. And so, just the opportunity to minister to our community throughout the entire year instead of just in the winter months, and then you don't know what they're doing for the rest of the summer. You don't know what they're doing in the spring. So that's why it's important, I think, for us to, if you have the resources available, why not? Why are you not doing it? Upward makes everything so super easy. I'm not just saying that. I don't work for Upward. They literally make everything super easy. All you have to do is, a little learning curve on the online platform. And then you just go out and have fun, right? And teaching sports and loving on people. That's what we're called to do anyway. And so that's the real reason, that we wanted to offer it year-round.
Awesome. Yeah, I love the idea of, hey, if you got a patch of grass at your church, run a soccer league. There's no reason you can't, right?
Nope.
All right, I want to get our last question before we get to some audience questions here. And Tracy, I want to ask you this. As somebody who's been doing this for quite a while now and has seen all that comes with sports ministry, the ups and the downs, why should a church that doesn't currently do sports ministry, why should they start doing it?
Well, I gotta tell you, I'm gonna piggyback right on Kyle, what he said. I would say Upward Sports, you come along and partner with Upward Sports, and I'm with Kyle. I don't work for Upward Sports. I'm a children's pastor in a church, but the way that Upward breaks it down for you, I mean, their support, I talk to them all the time. I have their number literally on speed dial. I have it so I can just press a number on my phone. They always are answering their phone. They always will respond to any email. They have the online registration. They send you posters. They send you brochures. They'll walk you through anything. They make videos so it's easier for you to learn. They'll send you anything that you need or any way that you can help you. Even whenever I call and I think I'm supposed to know something and they probably are thinking, you should have read that. And then they just help me. They never tell me anything. They just treat me, and they just make it super, super easy. No matter how many times that I call or any questions I have, they just help walk you through. They give you the app for coaches is phenomenal because it makes the coaches just, can put it right in there, makes it easy for training, just so many things that I think you just get on board. And I've seen it come over the years. I've seen just those improvements continue to be made, but it makes it, I think, just ease of use for a church to be able to jump on, choose a sport that works for you. Because there's flag football and the volleyball and soccer, basketball, whatever that is that your facility can host. You're reaching people for Christ. That's awesome.
Awesome. Great. Well, I love that response. And I love all the responses you guys have given. And want to hit you with a couple of questions that maybe you weren't prepared for. So these are some really good questions we've gotten from those that are listening. So Kyle, I think this might be a good one for you. This is somebody named Jessica who's saying, I struggle getting volunteers already. So how do you recruit more volunteers to pray?
Jessica, that's a great question. I think that's always a big struggle, in any church ministry, no matter what it is, right, is getting people to volunteer. So one of the big things that we do is preseason, as registration is starting to open up, we get in front of our church, and our pastor does a great job in partnering with us, but we get in front of the church and talk about, it's not the pastor's job to do the ministry in the church, right? It's the pastor's job to share the gospel, preach out of the word, share truth, but it's the saints' job, the congregation's job to do the ministry. And that's, that's the biggest thing that we've done in order to recruit volunteers. Number one, because, we have, like I said, 520 kids. That's over 1,000 parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and, neighbors that come through our door. So it takes a lot of volunteers. Any given Saturday, we're over 200 volunteers, as we go throughout the day. And so, it comes from the pulpit, number one. It comes from, setting the expectations for the church, in this minute. I mean, Upwards is probably going to be your biggest church ministry that you do. And so, anybody should be excited about that these folks are not only coming to our church, they're coming willingly to our church. They're paying to participate in a program. We're not forcing them to do anything, and so reminding them what ministry really is, reminding them that it's our job as a congregation. I'm not a pastor. I'm just a league director. Reminding them it's our job as the saints of the congregation to actually run the ministries. It's been our biggest tool, I guess, to recruit volunteers.
That's great. I love that. I love the importance of senior leadership within the church, really promoting it from the pulpit.
100%.
The word of mouth that comes into play, once people have experienced positively what goes on in Upward, they're telling everybody about it. So I love that. Here's a question, Tracy, for you, from Ryan. He's asking, how can you remember the why of the sports ministry when you are in partnership church situation where there is not great communication and collaboration in previous years? So you're somebody that's involved in a church partnership, so I'm curious what your thought is.
Well, I definitely walked into that. So previously there was a lot of maybe not great communication or great collaboration between the churches. And so I just say it's our job to just raise that bar. So I'm just going to walk into that and I'm just going to say, hey, I'm sorry. This is me doing the best I can. Hey, can we meet at Chick-fil-A? All right, let's talk about Chick-fil-A. How could I improve that? I think just for us as people, as a pastor, as a league director, anyway, as a leader in any way, I always just say, how can I help? What can I do to improve? And then I write that down and then I just get to work and I just get started and I say, absolutely. I think one thing for me, I remember when I came on, so I've been doing it for like 9 years. And one of the things is that for the other partner church, they have, their directors that direct the Upward part of it, but the senior pastor had been left out of the loop of any communication. And so the senior pastor there didn't know what was going on. So that was just a real quick, easy ad, but the senior pastor in all my emails of making sure that whatever was coming, anything that was happening. So you just step into even, we step into what we have what we have. I didn't have any files. I felt like I didn't have anything left for me, but you step in, I build a checklist. I'm going to make it better. I'm going to put some steps of things into improvement and how I can make that better. And then I write it down so that I can remember it. So my checklist builds every single year of how I can improve that, how I can make it better. One thing I ask at the end of anything I lead at VBS, but also in Upward, of what went well and how can we improve? And I open that up for anybody on my key leadership teams. I want to be able to be always reflecting what went well and how can we improve? So I would just say to address that question, I hear you, and that definitely happens. We always have some miscommunications or misfires on things. Don't be afraid of that, and don't be afraid to correct it, fix it, step into and say, how can I improve?
That's great. Yeah, I love the come in setting the expectations high. I like that idea. And no, this last question we'll pose to you. This is from somebody named Jared. And Jared wants to know, what's the best way to advertise to the community to attract others outside of your church?
Yeah, Jared, I really appreciate your question, man. And, just this being our first year hosting our league, it started real slow with our registrations. We went with social media and posters and didn't see a whole lot. Then we decided, you know what, we need to call the people that we know at the schools. In our city, there are 5 public school districts in our small little city here in Johnstown. And I knew the guidance counselor at one. I knew the athletic director at one of the Christian schools. And I said, hey, can I send some flyers your way? And they said, yeah. And next thing I knew, my registrations went through the roof, at least for us. And then we started putting flyers at all the other schools when all it took was just a phone call or an email. And a lot of the schools were like, yeah, can you make us X amount of flyers? Sure. I'll print it off here at my church and I'll drive it up to your school and drop it off same day. We did that. And Jared, man, next thing I knew, we had phone calls, emails, people asking questions, wanting more information. And every week at staff meeting, I'm giving an update because, you know, when we started, I told my pastors over last summer, hey, yeah, we're going to do our league. They said, okay, plan for 40 and expect 25. And I'm going, guys, I know from experience that's not realistic. I know we're going to have more. And sure enough, we did. We had over 100 kids register for our opening season. And what helped was getting those flyers out to the schools. And I can just remember every staff meeting, hey, you know, here's the update. We got 40 kids, 50 kids, 75, 90, 100. Wow. And every week I had to hold back. I had to, you know, I really wanted to be like, I told you so. But, you know, partnering with schools was a big key for us this year. It allowed us to build relationship there, come alongside the schools and be able to bless them and build a relationship there. Yeah.
Can I just chime in now? For our schools won't let us pass out flyers, so I'll just tell you it's social media, but Facebook marketing for $50 or so, you're 50, no more than $100. I mean, you're hitting 50,000 people. So if you're not that person, that's another thing I would say. You don't have to be the person that knows how to do it. You just have to be the person that knows who to ask and how to begin to delegate. So just don't be afraid to step into some of those leadership roles, even if it sounds intimidating. Find some people. You don't have to be the Facebook guru, but just find someone who is, and then, you know, tap into them. But Facebook marketing blows up for us. We can hit some schools, but there's most schools we won't be able to pass out flyers to.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. Like, what works in one area really well might not work in the other, but there's a lot of avenues to pursue as far as advertising goes and getting promoting your league. That's good. Great. Well, guys, I really appreciate the three of you hopping on and being our panelists today. And for those of you that are watching now, maybe you're at your office at work, or you're on your lunch break or whatever, and you're spending a few minutes with us. We really appreciate that as well. And I just want to also remind you that those of you that are listening, that maybe you're at a church and you're like, man, I'm really digging this sports ministry thing. I really think it would work well. I'm like, what do I need to do? Go to this website we have here, upward.org/church-leaders. And that's got everything you'll need to kind of get in contact with who you need to contact here at Upward, and get you on the right path to getting sports ministry brought into your church. And if you're already running Upward Sports, and maybe you're like, you know what, Kyle's got something going where, you know, we've got a patch of grass or two that we could throw some soccer goals up and run a soccer league. So if you're looking at maybe running another sport, contact your ministry rep. They'll be happy to walk you through that process of starting, if it's soccer or flag football. Volleyball that's just recently kicked off is a great resource as well. So be sure you contact your ministry rep for more information on that. And if you'll just let me, I'd love to pray for you guys, and then we'll close things out. All right. God, we are just thankful for you today, for what you do through sports. And this has not been a time where we want to glorify sports. We don't want to glorify Upward Sports. We don't want to glorify ourselves. We just want to point everybody to you and glorify you. And God, I just thank you so much for Tracy and for Kyle and for Noah, for their willingness to just kind of take a few minutes and just join us in helping other league directors who just maybe need some direction and need some motivation and understanding the why behind what they're doing. And I thank you that you've allowed them the opportunity to do that. For those that are listening to this webinar today, just empower them, just encourage their hearts. They maybe have just wrapped up basketball, or they're about to start soccer, or wherever they are in their journey around sports ministry. God, I pray that you would just encourage them, remind them of your goodness and your grace and your mercy in their lives, and bring them the volunteers, God, so they're not doing things alone. Bring them the support of senior leadership in their church to get things going, and just give them the heart for those in their community that need to know you. We love you and we thank you. Amen. Well, guys, thank you again for joining us, and y'all have a wonderful day.